Welcome to Off the Cut, a podcast where we talk about building, making,
and answering all of your questions.
I'm Eric from Spenceley Design Co.
And I'm Zach from Zach Builds. If you have a question that you would like us to answer on air, you can send it to offthecutpodcast@gmail.com.
You can find both of us on YouTube, Instagram, and unfortunately, because we have to keep up with kids, you can find us on TikTok too.
All right, now let's get into the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Off the Cut episode 58. We're up in Toronto. Today is known as Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. But here in Ohio, today is respectfully dedicated to the food of the day. This, again, is not a food, but it's something on a stick.
Something on a stick. Okay. I mean, kebabs are good, so...
Yeah, I mean, I would take kebabs. I love kebabs. It's actually going to make
else?
some of those, but I didn't get to it.
What else can you get on a stick?
Pogo.
Pogo, yeah, that's on a stick. Yeah. Popsicle, kind of food. Not really.
I don't know. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Well, it was fun while it lasted. Pogos.
Well, that
kebabs,
sucks.
And popsicles.
Yeah. And let's also get this get this out of the way. If there's some awkward pauses tonight, it's because my internet is going through God knows what right now.
Yeah, I wonder if it's your internet or it's my internet, because I am on a new connection. It's stupid fast, so I wouldn't think it would be, but you never know with when you change things up, and yeah.
But we were having a little bit of trouble last week with Suman.
Yeah.
So, and were you in your new place then?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have been having some issues with the work computer with internet. So maybe something's going on here. Maybe I need to call them and get that all situated. I don't know. It's one of my many things I need to get done on my list. But
you know what it sounds like to me? Sounds like you need a PC, my friend.
No. My work computer is a PC, and it's even worse.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
There goes all my confidence.
I know. That's the problem.
The guys in the live chat are saying that you're like this every week, but it's definitely not. This is much worse than it normally is. We're on like a 2 to 3 second delay here, I think.
I know. And I think what I'm going to do to just try to mitigate this is once I'm done talking, just stop. And it might be a little bit of an awkward delay, but it'll allow us to at least like feed off of each other.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan to me.
All right. Well, let's get some things out of the way first. We got some new patrons this week.
Yes,
We've got our Odie's Oil fans, which are also known as, somebody called them certified turds. I don't know. That seems insulting for people who are, for people who are financially supporting us. Like, come on. We've got Scott Holland and Greg Beneke, which, if I recall correctly, is the spoiler alert, but this is the show that's 20 years old, so I'm not really spoiling anything. Pretty sure Greg Beneke is the guy that Skyler from Breaking Bad had an affair with.
Oh, really?
I think so.
What was he, like a real estate agent or something like that? It's been so long since I've seen that show.
I thought it was like she was like the accountant for him, like the CPA.
He owned the business or something.
And what was the business?
I don't know. All I can think about is car washes.
Was it like an auto? I want to say it's auto parts, but I think that's Callahan Auto Parts from Tommy Boy. I think I'm mixing up two things.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that's his actual name, or do you think that's a deep cut, like kind of inside joke for the Patreon?
It could be, because we were talking about Breaking Bad 5 or 10 episodes ago.
I know. And the patrons have been known to pull our legs a little bit with their names. So
yeah,
potential.
that's true.
Potential.
That's true. Well, anyway, Greg Beneke, if that is a long con, salute to you. I'm sure somebody else will tell us, be like, no, it was really like Paul Rodriguez, and like we were nowhere close or something like
that. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But anyway, we also got another apprentice. That's Tom Funk.
Oh yeah.
Which, if you ask me, that name is screaming to be in a band playing the bass.
Again, potentially just a funny name somebody put up there, but that one seems real to me for some reason.
I like the name. It's a good name.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have our returning top tier patrons, our Caulkers, Dadu, Luke Schmidt, Derek Jennings at Pecantry Designs, Corey Duvall, Jason Price at Priceless Pro Designs, Scott Eastman at Eastie's Woodshop, and the Power Caulker, formerly known as Wes. I'm here. I'm using my wife's premium account.
I thought that was funny. I wanted to give a quick apology to some of the patrons out there, because Eric and I just found out that there was a little bit of a snafu with the way our Patreon was set up. Basically, we had the first 2 tiers of Patreon support, the Odie's Oil fans, the certified turds, and the rigid fans. We accidentally capped those at 15 and 25 patrons max, respectively. So if you tried to become a patron in the last couple of weeks and you were like, oh, these guys have a limit on their lower tiers, force people into the higher tiers because they're greedy.
Right.
That's not the case. It was a little clerical error on our part. So if you go now, you can become a patron, get access to the after show, all that fun stuff for just $3 a month. Wasn't our intention. I apologize.
Right. And those after shows, the past 5-6 weeks have been longer than the main show, which is not the intention, but
I know. But sometimes the conversation just gets rolling and you're like, oh, well, an hour and a half flew by and I didn't even notice.
Right. And because we've had a boatload of questions, and we got 1, 2, oh gosh. We got questions from 1, 2, 3, 4 different people, but some people wrote in multiple questions. So I'm trying to space them out, not just like read like 7 questions from the same person every after show, but got a lot of questions, a lot of different things to talk about this week.
We could answer some questions in the main show if we wanted to get really crazy.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Okay. Sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned it.
Yeah. So, believe it or not, I did watch your most recent video. And
yeah.
So tell the people about it that didn't watch it, because I'm sure most people haven't.
Okay, yeah. So it was basically a speaker build. I built some custom speakers for myself, and I incorporated a couple things that used to be on my desk into the speaker. So it's a set of lights and it's a set of pads that isolate the speakers from the rest of the desk for maximum sound quality. So yeah. But that's and there, I should also say, because there's a light inside the speaker, the exterior of the speaker is a combination of clear acrylic and walnut, so that the light inside the speaker can actually spill out. So
I've got many questions about the build process, but the first thing I want to know about, because it's something that I have never done, is tell me about the building construction with acrylic. Was it hard, easy? Like, how did you? I saw you use the kind of contact cement type situation with the acrylic, but tell me more about that.
Yeah, so if you watch the video, I actually did it wrong, which a couple people pointed out very nicely for me in the comments. So the way acrylic works is you can basically cut it into the shape you want, arrange it into the shape you want, and then use this stuff called Weld-On 3, which melts the acrylic and fuses the two pieces together. So the mistake I made was applying the Weld-On and then pushing the pieces together the way you would if you were gluing two pieces of wood together. But what everybody said I actually should have done is you should arrange the pieces into the shape you want and then apply the glue, because the glue will instantly start melting the acrylic And I should also say that the glue itself is very watery. It's less viscous than water is. So it runs really quickly. So you try and put it on like a mitered edge and it just slides right off.
Okay.
So people were saying if you do a miter, you should really close the miters together and then apply it on that inside corner and just let it seep in and start melting things. So that's kind of the mistake I made that I'll avoid next time. But other than that, acrylic remarkably easy to work with. It cuts just like hardwood. You can work it, you can sand it if you want to. It's not that dissimilar from wood.
When you joined the edges together of the acrylic, did you do butt joints or did you miter them?
I mitered them. So I cut them at 45 on the table saw, and then I just pushed them together.
Because you did like the, I don't know what they call it, the fold technique where you put like the painter's tape and stuff, and then you just jammed a bunch of that weld on the inside.
Yes, exactly. So I made the mistake of unfolding the thing, applying the glue, and then folding it back up. Whereas everybody was saying in the comments, you should really fold it and then apply the glue and just let it seep into that tiny little miter gap.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I've always wanted to consider building with acrylic, but because I've never done it before, I didn't really know. So was it strong?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The acrylic is, I'm trying to think what would be definitely, so it's a 1/4 inch thick, and I would say it's stronger than a piece of 1/4 inch plywood. Yeah. So it's stronger than you would think. It's, probably, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, what it's close to. But, yeah, I mean, I imagine, What's a good it's just plastic, and plastic actually gets surprisingly strong as it gets thicker.
So how strong is that joinery area with that weld on stuff? Is it act literally like it's one piece of plastic because it melts it and fuses it together?
Exactly. I didn't want to be too rough with it, because the way the weld on works is you apply it and it cures pretty quickly, but it's one of those things where it gets significantly stronger as time goes on. So reading the instructions, it said it doesn't hit its maximum strength until 2 weeks after you apply the glue. When I did it, I was being very gentle with it, but I think now if I tried to separate those 3 panels, it would be really hard to do.
Interesting. Yeah. I would be really curious. Just, internally, I doubt you could make a video on this, but you might be able to, is get 1/4 inch acrylic, do the weld on thing, let it sit for a couple weeks or whatever so it's fully cured, and then do 1/4 inch plywood and see which joint is stronger, just the glued mitered plywood or the welded mitered acrylic.
My instinct tells me that the acrylic would be stronger, but it'd be an interesting test to run for sure.
Okay. So you have absolutely zero concern about the pressure from the speakers potentially breaking that seam?
No. At first I did. But after having run the speakers and, just being kind of there with it, it's not a concern I'm at all worried about anymore.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's not the amount of force that the speaker generates inside. I guess the kind of positive pressure that the speaker creates inside of the speaker cabinet is pretty substantial. If you stand directly behind the speakers, so there's a little breather port at the back of the speakers, you can feel serious air moving out of the speaker when, a bass note hits or something like that. So it's not there is some serious force inside the speaker going on.
That's crazy though, that those speakers, the drivers, what are they, 3.5 inch drivers, 4 inch drivers?
I think they're actually 5 or 6 here. Let me see.
Okay, so they're pretty large then.
Yeah. It's the cone is 5 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty big. I mean, that's the size of a lot of speakers that would be in most people's cars.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like the door panel speaker. It's kind of in that size.
Right. Right. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So after building that with the acrylic and being able to weld those pieces together, has it made you think of like other ways that you could potentially incorporate acrylic, like maybe into like furniture or something like that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's interesting. Acrylic is it's a bit of a tough medium to work with. It's kind of expensive. Um
Yeah.
and it's very soft. So the use case for it in furniture is a little bit limited in some regards because you wouldn't want to make like a tabletop out of acrylic because you might end up like if you put a plate on it or something like that, it would scratch right away.
Right.
So I have to be kind of cognizant of that. It's fun to play with though, and I would definitely would like to find some more use cases for it. I think that's part of the reason why so many people use epoxy is it's kind of similar to acrylic, but you can just pour it into a mold and it takes on whatever shape you want it to take on.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. What do you have any ideas for acrylic things?
I don't know. It just like after I saw you weld the pieces together, it just kind of it made me think like I don't want to make a speaker, but I was like, how could I incorporate just like a new material or a new medium into
Yeah.
creating something that I typically wouldn't? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, it's cool. That's why I like finding new materials and stuff to work with. Just like, like I got a project coming up where I want to braze together some copper. Um
Right.
Yeah, so it's like I always like experimenting with new mediums and materials because it might be 6 months down the road where I'm like, oh, I could put a piece of acrylic in that, and oh, I already know how to now weld acrylic sheets together, right? So it's just good to
Right.
have that type of stuff up and floating around in your head.
So, what are you thinking about doing for that brazing copper project? Is this like a base for a table or something?
No, it's much smaller than that, actually.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Let me grab a little visual representation.
Oh yeah, yeah. Zach will be back. I'll hang out with
Oh.
everybody while he's gone. Oh, he's
So
back.
I think I talked to you about this before, but I bought this phone off of Craigslist.
Oh
So I
yeah.
want to make a mobile retro game console. And I
Okay.
was looking at ways that I could do it with a Raspberry Pi. I was looking at ways that I could do it with like these, kind of get a board here, get a screen here, wire them all together. And it was getting expensive really quick. So I was like, what about if I just used a phone as the basis for it? But
Okay.
the problem with using a phone is that they're not really meant for, your average cell phone is not meant for long duration, high intensity work. They overheat really quickly because it's a sealed unit. You have a lot of heat inside a very small space.
Okay.
So my thinking is to cut the back off of this phone, braze together a custom heat sink out of copper, and then have this kind of copper pathway that heat can get out of the phone and then make a new case for the back of it and integrate it all into
Okay.
one solid thing. So it'll be
That's
it's
definitely an interesting idea.
yeah, it's a full geek project. But it's going to be a little bit challenging to do for sure. There's a good chance that I might ruin this phone in the process, but I'm excited to actually try it out.
Well, then that's the perfect title or the video. Like, I ruined $1,000 phone trying to make this video or something like that. Like, boom.
Yeah, true. True. Yeah, it's good. That's a good point. I'm hoping I don't ruin it though,
So,
because I actually want it to succeed.
oh yeah, it would be sweet if it worked out. But while you were
Yeah.
talking about that, one of the things that I just thought about, and I don't know if you had thought about this or if there are any like legal issues, so please tell me.
Hmm.
You have mentioned that every time that you make one of these retro console things, like you build one of these
Yeah.
things and make a video about it,
Yeah.
everybody asks, "Can you make me one?"
Yes.
What if you almost make like a digital download guide that's like,
Hmm.
here's every single part that I bought. Here is
Yeah.
how you wire it together. Here are all like the different software things that
Yes.
I did. Here's how I set it up. Here's where you get all the stuff. Have you considered making like a download like that? Because I would easily pay $30 to $50 for something like that.
Okay, I have for this particular build. I don't think that will work because I'm going to be taking apart the phone. I'm going to be brazing custom copper, but I have thought about. So I don't know if I told you this, but last week I ordered a 3D printer.
Oh yeah, did you get the one that we were talking to Travis from Shop Nation about?
Exactly. Yes, I did.
Okay.
So my thinking, one of the first things I would like to do with that is redo my original Everything Console video, except this time I'll create it with a 3D printer.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking I'll sell, and I'll do it with, components that are reasonably cheap that anybody can get. So I am thinking, yes, there'll be a guide, and there'll be also the ability to get the 3D printer file. And I'll sell, I'll sell the whole thing as a package, essentially. So you get the 3D printer file, here's all the parts I used, and then here's where you can get all the software in order to run it. I think
I'm forecasting that you are going to be so mad that you didn't start doing this kind of thing earlier.
Yeah. I thought, based on everything you're telling me about your digital files and going to Workbench Con, it's something that I really need to do. And I was also thinking, let me run this by you. What about if I just did like a text document that was like, hey, here's where you get everything you need for retro gaming?
Literally just a PDF that you can update.
Yeah. I'll like update it once a month or, once a quarter. It's like, here's the best websites, download these pieces of software. And so I've definitely been thinking about doing that as well.
Especially if any of those software like things have any sort of affiliate program or whatever, you could basically just put your affiliate link in there.
Right. Well, the best part about a lot of the software is I would say 99% of it's free.
Okay, like it's open source. It's just having the due diligence to know what is good, what's crap, where to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Download this one, and you can get it at this website. Download this one, you can get it at this website. If you want the games, you can go here. Technically, it's illegal to download the games unless you already own them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And so that might be something where you might have to look up like the legal jargon of like, I am not endorsing you pirating games. This is just a source, like do your own research, blah, 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 like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's where it gets a little, I've always worried about that. That's where it gets a little kind of hinky. Because it is illegal. It's not illegal to download the games if you own a physical copy of the game. So say I bought, Super Mario Bros. For the NES.
Sure.
It's not illegal for me to go on the website and download a backup copy of that game because I already own it. But it is illegal for me to go and download that game if I never owned it in the first place, because then you're essentially, committing piracy. Now, morally, I don't think it's really that big of a deal, personally, because that game is no longer in production. You couldn't buy it if you wanted to.
Fair.
That's not always the case, but by and large, it's really hard to get retro games. Like the only way you could do it now is to go for a lot of these titles to go on eBay and pay somebody $200 for some ultra rare NES title.
Sure. Or like I know some of them have like for whatever the newest Nintendo system, whatever the hell that is, you can like get some of the old games, but you still have to pay money for them.
Exactly. You do have to pay money for them. They're usually pretty expensive.
Right.
Like it's like, it's like some 3-decade-old game, and you're like, really, you want $50 for that? Like, that seems a little cheeky to me.
Oh, they're that expensive?
Sometimes. Nintendo is by far the worst when it comes to. They do not discount any of their products. They're really aggressive with their pricing, and they're also the most litigious. So they're the ones that I worry about the most coming after me.
That's nuts, though. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, you want to go play, Super Smash Brothers or whatever, and it's just like, well, I'm not buying a $400-500 new Nintendo console. I just want to play it on my computer.
Exactly, right? And that's so that's kind of the crux of the whole thing. And that's even like Super Smash Brothers, super popular game. I'm sure you could get that through Nintendo's online service. But what about something like more obscure? Like some game that you just, your parents got
Leisure Suit Larry.
Exactly. Good luck finding Leisure Suit Larry. Oh, I can't even say that. It's almost like a tongue twister. Good luck finding Leisure Suit Larry in 2023 in a way that you can actually download it. So, like, is it really immoral to download a game that's no longer in production, that you couldn't buy anywhere, where the original developer is even going to see any of the, the funds that you would pay for it, essentially?
It's almost like I wish they had hey, here's almost like a pay what you want thing. Like that you can go on Nintendo's website and be like, hey, here's a Super Smash Brothers from 25 years ago. It's free. However, if you'd like to make a donation, like a pay what you want kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really nice.
I'd pay him $25 easy.
Oh, for sure. Especially if it was going to go to like some charitable cause or something like that.
Exactly.
There's a funny thing that happens because I have a friend who works in special effects and stuff like that. I've done some videos. You've probably seen it before in some of my videos.
Yeah.
But he has this saying that you don't fight the mouse because Disney is super litigious about everything. And I find that a lot of these corporations that have this kind of cutesy, family-friendly kind of like brand image are actually some of the most litigious and kind of pain in the ass companies to deal with. And Nintendo's the same way. It's like, oh, what do you think about with Nintendo? It's like Kirby, Mario, Pokemon. It's all these like really cutesy things. But apparently, like, they've sued other YouTubers for simply showing gameplay footage of their games running on an emulator.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So my God, that's a nightmare.
I know. So it's luckily I haven't received any word from Nintendo. So I think even one of my everything console videos is called, I'm trying out the title right now, Nintendo's lawyers are going to hate this one. So I am I'm kind of playing with fire a little bit, but so far it's been okay.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
So you've been working on the speaker. I guess that's probably an old video, right? How long has that one been sitting in the queue?
Probably there was some back and forth. So you know how I was telling you at Workbench Con, the best part about working with Squarespace is that they were letting me just copy and paste the integrations from old videos.
Oh no, did they figure it out?
Yeah, they figured it out. They messaged me like, hey, actually, I know we're like this was the 5th video that I did in that contract. And like, I know we're 5 videos into this, but you can't keep reusing the same thing. And we should have flagged this a while ago. I was like, oh crap. And it was the day after they sent me that email the day after I moved. And I was like, my whole studio's broken down. My desk is all broken down. So I had to like sit there and just like, I couldn't find my microphone. I just did it with the internal microphone and the camera, like no mic on it or anything. Just set it up, just did a new ad read and whacked it together real quick. But so that video was delayed like 2 weeks or something, just because I was trying to get that ad read sorted out.
Okay. Yeah. I'm kind of going through the same thing. I think I briefly talked about it. The dining room table video that I'm doing with Policy Genius.
Okay, that's the Policy
It got delayed.
One.
Right. I have it. Got the contract signed. March, April. It'll be beginning of May. So I promise everyone out there, dining room table is coming beginning of May.
The guys in the Discord chat were talking about this earlier today. They were like, did Eric start just start on another dining table build. And then I think it was Craig, but I can't remember who exactly it was in the chat, was like, no, what he's doing is he's starting the Instagram reels to get people ready for the YouTube video coming out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The Instagram reels that I made a year ago.
So how long have you edited down that video? Is it still like 45 minutes long?
I think it's close to 45 minutes long. Okay, before the ad read, which will be like another 60 seconds or so.
Did they have a clause in their contract that the ad read has to be somewhere specifically in the video?
Mark does all mine, so it has to be within. It has to start before the 50% mark.
Okay. I've had that. Like, that's a pretty common clause in a lot of contracts, but I've had it where they also include a second thing. It's like, and if the video's longer than 20 minutes, it has to be in the first 10 minutes.
Nope.
Okay. So it's going to be, this ad read is going to be like 20 minutes into your video, essentially.
Yeah, like 22, 23 minutes into the video.
That's fantastic. I like that.
Hey. I still get 20 minutes worth of AdSense for anyone who gets it and then gets the ad read and goes, F this guy, I'm out of here.
I mean, I think if you're 20 minutes into a video and you get hit with an ad, you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. It's like, I've been here for a long time.
Right. And it's term life insurance. It's something that if you have a spouse, like, you should, consider looking into it. Like, it's not some BS nonsense that you don't need. It's like, yeah, some people might need this.
Yeah, life insurance is it's one of those things where it's, in the past they you open up a bank account, they're like, hey, do you want our like free life insurance policy? I've always in the past been like, no, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't need that shit. Right. It was explicit.
Oh man, we got pretty far.
I know, but now that I'm getting older, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should get the life insurance. Like, starting to get up there, I kind of have a little bit of a dangerous job. Like, what would happen to Sophie if something were to happen to me? So, yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely something worth thinking about. That's why when they were like, do you want to do one? I was like, well, sure. First, Policy Genius is probably one of the better paying ones out there. And it's super easy. It's it's literally a script, because it's like they have legal things. So you just like, here's what I want you to read. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. That was when I was working with the bank here in Canada doing some Instagram spots, it was very much like everything had to be run by a legal team. So it was very tight. Right. Like, I had to say exactly the words that were on the script. They were like, you cannot deviate from them at all.
Mm-hmm. That's why most people, when they do it during the litigious parts, they cut away to B-roll and they literally just read straight off of like the legal contract that you have to do it.
Yeah, that's how I do a lot of my ad reads. I'll like plan out the part that I actually had to say to the camera, and then I'm like, okay, this whole part's gonna be covered up by B-roll. I like pull my phone out of my pocket and just start reading off the screen.
And just like right here, like this is what your big phone in front of your face, and you're like, and just sign up for this. I don't know.
Exactly. So what? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Or are you going to stay on the same topic? I have something slightly different that I was curious about asking you about.
I had something on the subject of ad reads still.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
So I was watching one of Brad Rodriguez's Fix This, Build That, his videos, and I noticed he does his ad reads as a little like bubble on screen. And I was like, that's actually kind of smart, because it keeps people from skipping. So he's still doing something, like he's still working on the project while he's doing the ad read. So I tried to integrate that into the last two Squarespace videos I did. And you might have noticed in the last video, it's there for like 10 seconds. And then it cuts over to the B-roll, and the B-roll's full screen, because Squarespace made me do that. They were like, we need people to see the user interface in full screen.
Right.
But I did notice on that video, it's not as sharp of a, on your retention graph, you usually have this huge dip right as soon as the ad starts playing, because people just immediately start skipping the ad, which fair enough. I do the same thing. But I found that it's now, instead of being a hard dip, it's much more of a V-shaped dip.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it's interesting. I'm gonna see if I can, when I do ad reads in the future, I'm gonna see if I can negotiate a clause that it'll only cover like 50% of the screen or something like that, just to keep people kind of engaged, give them a reason to keep watching. It's good for the advertiser, it's good for the audience, and then I think it's good for us in terms of just viewer retention on the video.
I've done it before and been shot down, but I have not attempted it since I have Mark. So I know Brad works with Mark as well.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe because it's never in the contract as far as like what percentage the screen has to cover. So maybe it's like, hey, no, we're not going to change this. I don't know. I could try it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try it with the Policy Genius.
It's a conversation worth having. And all I did was like, I just had some clip where I was like disassembling a light. I was just like, okay, I'll just set the speed of this clip to exactly the length of the ad. And it just kind of plays at full speed. You get to see me wrestle with the light for a little bit. It's like, at least it's like some value to the user. So I don't know. It's just an interesting little hack that I picked up.
Or the classic, well, I'm sanding these pieces. Let me tell you about today's sponsor. Like that. Yeah. And it's just like, you just like shows you sanding or whatever. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. But what I wanted to ask you about and hear your thoughts. So I've been approached, I'm sure you have as well, by these like adjustable standing desk companies.
Oh, yeah. So many of them.
Yeah. So I've got one in the works that could potentially be, basically the amount of money, it would be very difficult to turn it down.
Yeah. Okay.
And
okay.
I want to shop some ideas with you, see what you think.
Yeah, let's do it.
So,
okay.
One of the things I was thinking about like a year and a half or so ago, I did a video with Arbor Tech where I basically, Miranda and I like power carved this coffee table. And then the idea was to like encase the whole top in epoxy so you could see like all the valleys and rivers, but it was like flat because it was clear epoxy.
Yeah.
Long story short, it was a huge failure.
Yeah, I remember.
That one. Yeah, it was a fail. So I had considered, what if I kind of tried something like that again and use that as the desktop for the desk? Would that be an interesting enough video?
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I mean, okay, so here's my thought. As a geek, I enjoy the concept of optimizing my desk.
Okay.
So the only thing I would caveat on, like, I think that would make for a super interesting tabletop. But I would also maybe think about like what kind of cool features you can integrate, especially because it's like a standing desk, right? It's like this thing that goes up and down. Like, could you maybe do some cable management? Could you maybe have like some neat trick features that I could take away and be like, oh, I'd like to incorporate that into my own desk?
So I figured you were going to say that. And one idea that I have that I don't know if I've seen on standing desks, and I have no idea if this like motor is even powerful enough. So just like on your desk, you have like the bay of cabinets or drawers on each side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have a standing desk, when the desk goes up, your cabinets are just going to stay on the floor.
Yeah.
What if I attached the cabinets to basically the underside of the desktop, so as the whole desktop raised, the cabinets came with it? Have you seen
that? Funny story is, originally when I was building my desk, I was gonna do legs on it, the standing desk legs on it. So that is essentially exactly what I was going to do with my desk. But the problem I ran into is that it was just too heavy in the end. Like, my desk is probably 200 pounds or something like ridiculous like that. But I did get approached by one of these standing desk companies, and I think they said theirs could lift up to 300 pounds. So it might well be possible now.
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool.
I mean, I don't even care. I'll say it. Mine's the Flexi Spot.
Yeah, I got approached by them too.
Okay. How much does this say? Loading capacity 440 pounds
There you go.
for one of them.
There you go.
I mean, okay, so the whole desktop is probably like gonna be, I don't know if it's what, 5 feet by 3 feet.
So
Then
okay, so
covered
you're
in
not gonna
epoxy. It's probably gonna weigh 75 pounds.
yeah, something like that, and then cabinet on either side. Even if the cabinets are 40 pounds each, that's still tons of capacity.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
are you gonna do? Are you gonna do the regular, just like the straight desk, or are you gonna do the L-shaped one? Because they sent me a bunch of images of an L-shaped one.
I saw the L-shaped one. I don't know that I would use that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair.
Unless I did
don't really. I don't really know what your office
personal
looks
computer
like.
one side. Oh, it's literally just a square room. So maybe if I tilt the computer, can I do it? Nope, I can't. Well, this is a wall. To my right is a wall.
Okay, then you can touch that wall.
Oh yeah, I can touch that wall right there. And then over there, that's like the window, and then that's I can't go any further. But
I see. Is that Miranda's desk there?
So I'm just that she hasn't used in a year and a half. But
okay.
So it's just this room's probably 10 feet wide side to side, and then maybe 15 feet long.
Okay.
And I don't know that I would use an L-shaped desk in here.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm one of these guys who I'll just take as much desk space as I can get my hands on. But an L-shaped desk is awkward in that it's, especially when you guys move, it would be a real pain to get that thing out of there. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you're always going to be limited to what room you can put it in the end, too.
Right. That's why I think I'm going to go with just the standard, like, rectangular shaped desk. One thing that I would like to do is find some way to, like, connect my like NAS server to like the bottom, almost like mount it upside down to the bottom of my desk. Because right now, I mean, it's the size of what? Probably like a 12 by 12 by 12 cube.
Yeah, okay.
So it takes up a lot of real estate on my desk.
Mine's a little bit smaller than that. What about if one of the cabinets was like a spot for the NAS to go? That way you don't even have to see it.
Yeah. I would just have to make sure that it gets enough airflow.
Yeah. Well, here's what you do. On the back side of the cabinet, does your little NAS have a USB port?
Yeah.
So they make USB powered fans. So you could just put like a vent at the back of the cabinet, throw a USB powered fan, connect that to the NAS, and just suck all the hot air out of there.
It has a fan built in. Like it's pumping air through it all the time. Like if I put my hand up to it, it's like cold.
Okay, cool. But you wouldn't want like that air to collect in the cabinet though.
I get what you're saying. You did the same thing on your desk, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I was when you were resetting your router, I was talking to the live stream crowd about how I'm reworking the computer on my desk, and I'm gonna have at the back of that, I'm gonna have 18 fans that pull air through a radiator filled with water that's going to be removing all the heat from my computer. That's the project I'm working on right now.
Dear God. That'll be interesting, though. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can introduce the concept of water cooling to the woodworking crowd. And it'll be like two worlds colliding. So hopefully there'll be a little something there for people.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah. So let's say I get this computer desk thing and I got to build one. You've done a little bit more epoxy work than I have. How would you suggest that I physically go about making that idea? So I glue up a panel, I carve it. Now what?
Okay, so you glued up the panel, you carved it. I would then so first of all, when you glue it up and you carve it, I'd make it a little bit bigger than what you want the finished thing to be, the way you would with any tabletop, right? Then I would make some sort of custom enclosure for it, and it could be as simple as, particle board wrapped in that, like, the tuck tape stuff, or like the tape that doesn't stick to. I would make a custom enclosure with the board at the bottom, I think. Because before, how did you do it before? You had it upside down in the epoxy?
No. I try to use double-sided tape to basically tape the board down to the mold. I used silicone around it, but then it was so buoyant that it pulled itself up.
Okay, right. Yeah, we have to. So one easy way to avoid that is not to try and cast the epoxy that deep.
Yeah.
Right, because as long as the slab of wood is heavier than the epoxy it's displacing, then it won't float. So if you just do like a thin, like just pour the epoxy into the crevices and you don't try and make it that thick on top, I don't think it would. Yeah, I don't think it would float. But you really want to avoid the epoxy having any way to get underneath it.
So here's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Glue up the tabletop, carve it. Now flip it over and put a really thin, just like seal coat on the bottom. Okay. Then I'm going to flip it back over. So now it's the carved side up.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to do a really, really thin seal coat on the top so that it would alleviate any like air bubbles coming up through it.
Yeah.
And then just slowly build up thin layers, maybe?
The thing about thin layers is that you will see them from certain angles. It's not bad. It's honestly it's not the worst thing in the world, but if you look at it in profile, you will see those layers sometimes. Here's what I'm thinking, actually. So I like your idea of sealing it. That's a great call, and that's a good tip for anybody listening. If you seal your epoxy because wood is filled with little air pockets, right? And even if you use a slow curing epoxy, those bubbles that air is going to seep out into the epoxy slowly over time. And when it does cure, you're probably going to end up with a bunch of little air bubbles around the surface of your wood. So it's always a good idea to seal the wood prior to casting any epoxy. That being said, so let's go back to the idea of a custom enclosure. And we've already said we're going to make the desktop a little bit bigger than what it needs to be. What if you then screwed through the outside of the custom enclosure into the sides of the desk, but not that deep in? Like you only like penetrate like a 1/2 inch deep so that the slab can't float up.
So it's basically you're going to effectively screw through a part that you would then trim off at the end.
Exactly.
Okay. I think we're getting somewhere. And then once that epoxy is done, you'd pop it out of the mold. You'd like round over the edges, and then you put like a coat of tabletop epoxy on top of it so that it would go over the top and like spill over the edges then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely a better idea than what I've done before. Maybe I'll workshop that idea.
Trying to think of if there's any other way you could do it that would be a little bit easier than that. But I think that's how I would do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll call Christy from Total Boat, see if she has any ideas too.
Yeah. I wonder, like how does that Halcyon stuff how does that work? Is that like, if you put that over the top of a epoxy, will it smooth out all the little ridges and stuff? Any little like scratch marks?
It will. It's effectively polyurethane.
Okay. I was wondering if it was effectively just like that tabletop epoxy, but it dried quicker.
No, tabletop epoxy is way thinner.
Yes.
But it's like epoxy. It'll dry rock hard. It self-levels. It'll be glass smooth. Like,
Also, you might
Josh from Freedom Workshop has one, or a suggestion. He says, just clamp the table down with some blocks and do a small pour. Let that epoxy start to cure, then make the next pour without the blocks. The first epoxy should hold down. Emphasis on should hold down. Because if it doesn't, I'm out another $1,000 of epoxy like I did last time. But I didn't say in the video that I got the epoxy for free.
That there's also a bit of a timing thing with that. Like, you're going to have to plan that second pour and hit it at the right time. And I still think you might end up with a little stridation line between the two layers. If you do it just right, it might be okay, but just something to think about. I'm not saying definitely don't do it that way, but it's just something to think about.
I think I definitely like the idea of making the tabletop larger and almost screwing in or like making part of it like sacrificial that you're intentionally going to mess up or get destroyed, and then you cut it off.
If you don't love the idea of screwing through the mold on the outside, you could even just clamp the sacrificial area with a couple blocks or something like that, right? And then just know that you're going to cut those blocks off when you go to actually, finish the tabletop.
Yeah. I'm definitely very interested.
Yeah. I like that. I do like the idea of the carving and filling in.
Yeah, maybe this is the reason why no one else has done something like this.
Yeah. Who you should talk to as well is also Blake from BM Sculptures, because he does
that's a good idea.
He does big, deep epoxy castings all the time. So I wonder if he's got like some foolproof system.
Yeah, I know that whatever epoxy. Well, I know that whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to use the new Total Boat. Whatever. It's like it's even thinner than their thick set stuff. You can pour up to like 3 or 5 inches thick or something like that. But it takes 3 weeks to cure. I think it's called Fathom or something.
Fathom, I'm looking at their website right now. They have their traditional. They have, is it Razzo? No, that's like a terrazzo replacement. Interesting.
I don't.
This is where we need Derek, the producer.
Resins, epoxy. Resins.
Yeah, Fathom. Let's see.
Fathom. Yeah. So how deep can I pour with that?
3 inches deep.
Oh, I will never. It will. The whole table won't even be 3 inches deep.
Yeah. So one interesting
thing. How much is
thing
like 6 gallons? $830.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but let's be honest. You're not going to pay for it, are you? You got connections at Total Boat.
Yeah.
When we were talking, this might be interesting for the listeners. When we were at Workbench Con, we were talking to Blake, and what Blake does in order to pour even deeper, because some of the sculptures he does are like 2 feet thick. So what he does, he pours this epoxy, and then he puts it in a refrigerator or a freezer chest to slow down the curing process, and that allows him to get these deep pours without then boiling the epoxy effectively. So I thought that was really interesting, and it got me thinking. I was like, oh man, I'd love to do that sometime, but I don't want to get a big freezer. But then I was like, Zach, you idiot, you live in Canada. If I just do an epoxy pour, if I just do an epoxy pour in the wintertime, I could do one of these like crazy deep epoxy pours. So I'll probably have to wait 6 months to do it, but
yeah, I've done epoxy pours in my garage during the winter, and like you said, it takes forever for the stuff to finally cure. Like if I do like the 2-to-1 epoxy, which is the regular like things you pump and like fill in holes or whatever, it's supposed to harden in a couple hours, like full cure in a day or two, but it'll take me like 5 days for that stuff to cure in the winter.
Yeah, it's crazy how much temperature affects it.
But there are no bubbles.
No bubbles. So again, for people listening, one of the best things about slow curing epoxies, people ask me all the time, like, oh, why would you use the stuff that cures in 3 days when you can do the stuff that cures in 20 minutes? The stuff that cures in 3 days gives all the bubbles a chance to float up to the surface and just escape on their own. Whereas the stuff that that cures really quickly, it traps. Not only does it trap bubbles, but it also traps, dust and any little contaminants With the longer
Right.
curing stuff, all that stuff just floats up to the top, and then you just sand it out, or however you want to finish it. It's a lot easier to deal with.
And going alongside that, I've personally found a correlation to the clearness of an epoxy and
Oh,
the
interesting.
longer it takes to cure.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I mean, to a certain degree, I think a lot of the haziness you get in epoxy is just maybe even little micro bubbles and stuff like that.
Could be.
But yeah,
Could be.
you're right. The slower curing stuff definitely has a more like glass like appearance when it's done.
Right. Right. And doesn't
Yeah,
tend to yellow as much. Like any clear resin product will yellow over time.
yeah. It's unfortunate, but so I actually have a couple art pieces in my house. I don't have any in my office that I can show you, but my dad did these really cool. He went to Iceland a bunch of years ago, and he took these photographs, and he got the photographs printed on big archival sheets, and then he did the tabletop epoxy over the top of them, and then made these cool frames
Huh.
for them. And they're really beautiful photographs, really nice frames. But the tabletop epoxy he's used, even though I keep the photo or the piece of art in my bedroom where it's not exposed to direct sunlight, it is starting to yellow just a little bit, and it's like such a shame because it's one day it's going to ruin this beautiful piece of art.
Yeah. I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like I have been told by just about anyone from an epoxy company that it's not if a clear like resin will yellow, it's when it's going to yellow.
I'm gonna
So
hold on.
like
I'm just gonna pull up Ecopoxy's website because I think they say that their stuff doesn't yellow, but I could be making that up. So I just want to make sure I'm not. Okay, now I'm looking on their website. They make no mention of yellowing. So yeah, you're probably right.
so I'm on
It's
Total Boat and a yellow.
uh,
Uh
yeah.
so Total Boat says helping to dissipate heat from the cure will generally promote a more clear, more smooth surface. If heat is not allowed to dissipate sufficiently from the mold or casting, it's still it's still possible for pores, even with these guidelines, to generate enough heat to leave an imperfect surface or a slight yellow cast in the cured product. For best
Mm.
clarity, we recommend slower cure.
Okay, so you're right. Then there is a correlation between slow cure and clarity. I wonder if there's like, like it heats up to the point where the epoxy almost burns a little bit, or it not burns, but you know what I mean, right?
I have no idea. I mean, I get what you're saying though.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, nonetheless.
Hey, fun fact. Did you know
Mm-hmm.
that Total Boat doesn't make any of their own products?
Really interesting.
They're just a
Interesting.
white labeler.
Just a white labeler? I could
Yeah.
believe it. There was
Yeah.
there was a bunch of Toronto-based companies that like started selling their own epoxy, and I was like, okay, clearly they're just buying it from somebody else and slapping a different label on it. I'm 90% of the stuff probably comes out of the same factory in China.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I could be wrong, but I'm 99% sure that they're a white labeler.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Although, you know
whatever.
what? I will say that Ecopoxy, on a couple of occasions, has invited me out to tour their factory because that Ecopoxy is all made in Canada. So they were like,
Okay.
"Hey, if you ever want to come out and tour the factory and see how we make all this stuff, you're more than welcome to." So they probably are not a white labeler, if I had to guess.
I would say probably not. And this is not us promoting companies that help us out. Like I don't get
Yeah,
paid by Total Boat.
yeah.
Uh,
No, I've never been paid by Ecopoxy either. Or no, once actually, very early on in my YouTube career, they paid me $500 to make a video. It was big money. I
that's
was
good
really
money though.
pumped. That
When you
video got like
first start out on YouTube,
700,000
you're like,
views or something like that. So
oh,
they
yeah, they
good
cleaned
return on
up.
investment for them.
Yeah, no kidding. No
Yeah.
kidding. But see now, I yeah, no way I would do a YouTube video for $500. Wait till your channel gets bigger.
Yeah, 100%.
Wait till it gets bigger.
I honestly, I was just pumped to get free epoxy. That was the reason
hell yeah.
I did it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So speaking of ecopoxy, why do they call it ecopoxy? Is it like biodegradable, or like what's their shtick?
It's how they make it. So I'll answer the question to the best of my ability, but I know I'm gonna kind of butcher it to a certain degree. There's something in their manufacturing process where they make it from like soybeans or something like that, and that's why they call it ecopoxy. So I think it's made from something renewable.
It's bio-based as opposed to more common petroleum-based epoxy.
Yeah, and I think, again, I'm maybe potentially butchering this right now, but you don't need to wear, it's very low in VOCs, like volatile organic compounds, so you don't need to necessarily wear respirator or like the full shebang. It's, it's probably not a bad idea, but it's much safer to work with than a lot of epoxies.
So how much, let's see, like ecopoxy, how much is like a, I don't know, 6-gallon kit? Ecopoxy Flowcast 6 liters, which is what,
that's
2 gallons?
gallons. A gallon and a half is more like
$280. 2 gallons. So 6 liters is approximately 1.5 gallons. So you could say 270 by 1.5. It's about $180 a gallon.
Yeah, so it's in line with what Total Boat charges for their Fathom stuff, anyways.
Terribly. Let's see. Well, gallon of Fathom is for Fathom. 3-gallon kit is $440. So 440 by 3 is, so it's like let's call it $150 a gallon for Total Boat. What I said, about 180 gallon for ecopoxy. So it's pretty similar. It's
pretty similar in the same ballpark for sure. So Fathom, you can do 2 inches deep, 3 inches deep. I think Flowcast is the same. Oh no, Flowcast is 1.5 inches at most. But honestly, for tabletops and stuff like that, like you're rarely going to be pouring more than 1.5 inches at a time.
Right. And we all know that any manufacturer recommended thing is very conservative.
Yes. I often tell, like, when somebody's like, oh, this screw or this bolt is rated for 80 pounds, I'm like, you could probably put 160 pounds on it and it would be fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Huh. Well, we got a boatload of questions to get to in the after show. Should we
fire up the after the show hovercrafts?
Oh yeah, we're running on 100% bio-based fuels, no petroleum to get there.
Hell yeah, I like it.
All right. Well, if you guys want to join us over at the after show, we're going to answer a boatload of questions, going to keep this party rolling. Go over to patreon.com/offthecutpodcast and help support the show, because that is the only way that we get anything out of this.
That's right. And if you previously went, I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but if you previously went and you were like, I want to do the $3 tier, but they're all full up on the $3 tier, we fixed that. Anybody can join now for $3 or $5 or whatever you want. There's a whole bunch of different options, but it's all unlimited now.
Yeah. You gotta love Patreon. Works like a charm. Works great every time. Never any issues on Patreon, I'll tell you that.
No, never once. Never once. It's perfect.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you listening. Please share the podcast with somebody. Post it on your stories or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Get it out there.
Tell a friend. Send us voice notes. Send us email. We love it all.
That's right. And do we have a guest next week?
Is that Jason Ben?
I don't know.
Did I step on that? I don't know.
Hold on. No. Hold on. Anyway, we got a guest coming up soon. This is Jason. Hold on, scroll back in my text messages. The 11th.
The 11th. Okay, so we got one more week of just us.
One more week. Yeah. Nice. So Jason Bourne from the Bourne Supremacy will be here with us on the 11th.
The Bourne Ultimatum.
Yes, the Bourne Ultimatum. But yeah, let's head over to the after show. You've heard us talk about them at. Oh my God, I'm not even drinking. You've heard us talk about that enough. We'll be over there.
See you, everybody.
See ya.